Okay, you're in the CFIT lab. Welcome to user testing with the Right Honourable Stuart Lawler of the @Longdesc attribute for the HTML5 working group. We're going to be looking at the IDCnet page, and thanks a million to Christoph for sending in this example. So, Stuart.
Good morning, Josh. We're using the JAWS screen reader, and one of the great things about JAWS on the internet is the virtual viewer, because the virtual viewer gives us a lot of ways to jump very quickly to page elements such as form fields, tables, headings, and in this case graphics. So I'm going to jump to a graphic here.
Link graphic information, graphical usability pyramid, press enter.
The usability pyramid. I want to go into this option here.
Page
usability pyramid.
Blank. Norby uses the use blank. Graphical usability pyramid. Press enter for long description. Blank. Visited link figure 1. The usability pyramid. Enter. Page has 3 headings and 3 links. Heading level 2, the usability pyramid. The image shows a pyramid that represents all users of IT products and services. The white base represents the majority of users who have good human abilities. The top represent the users with the poorest human abilities, who are a small minority. 3 horizontal lines divide the pyramid into 4 sections. The big section at the bottom represents users who can access all services and devices directly. Above this is a somewhat smaller section representing those who can access services and devices only with some form of adaptation. Above this is a much smaller section containing those who need assistive technology. The small section at the top of the pyramid represents those who can only access IT products and services with the help of others. Back to the link report. Heading others.
Okay, Stuart. Do you think that helps you understand what the usability pyramid is a little bit better?
Absolutely. I mean, the description was very clear, very comprehensive, very complete. I would say one thing, and this is just purely a personal observation, and it may be relevant in other tests, maybe that you might do, Josh, in the future with other people.
Yeah.
I'm totally blind, and I've been blind since birth. So graphics and the shape, the physical shape of that in my head means very little, and I still don't have a sense of what that pyramid looks like, but I don't really need to be honest, you know. Somebody who had lost their sight maybe later in life, or who has better spatial concepts than I would have, would be much more, that image and the way that image is sort of portrayed or is described would mean much more to them.
Yes. So
I think it's very important, and it's very well kind of written as well, you know.
Okay, now I know you've got mixed feelings about the Longdesc attribute and this kind of thing. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I suppose I know just before we went on the air there, I was saying to you, why you know, who uses this kind of thing? Because in my experience, a couple of times, I think the first time someone said to me, you know, this new thing, press enter for long description. I pressed enter, it just didn't work.
Right.
You know, there was no description, and then I was kind of saying, who wants to know, you know, a graphic photograph of a sports car, press enter for a long description. What do you want? What more do you want to know about it, you know?
Right.
But again, it's a personal choice, and as you correctly explained in the whole area of the academic setting, somebody maybe is looking at a chemistry, maybe looking at, say, the periodic table, for example, and you want to find out some important elements or characteristics of that particular image, you know.
Yeah.
It's important.
So the disconnect then, in many ways, is the way authors might implement it.
Yeah, and
would you think? Would you say that's a fair observation?
I think that's a fair observation, and I think the way in which things are described. I mean, this author has gone to a lot of trouble to explain very clearly the way that pyramid is constructed, and as I said earlier, somebody with better spatial concept than I, or somebody who had their sight, would probably be able to draw that out for you straight away. I wouldn't be able to, but somebody else probably would. So that person has gone to great lengths to explain that. Now, I suppose one thing would be that whoever is going to describe images like that needs to be as clear and kind of detailed as this author is, you know. So I think this particular example is very good.
Would you say it's fair to say that the Longdesc, to be able to describe an image in a detailed manner, whether it's the Longdesc that's used or whether it's some other feature, would you say that in principle that's a useful thing to be able to do or not? It's
a very useful thing. It's a bit like doing audio described information. If you're watching a movie and you get audio description on it, there's a whole art to that, you know.
There is.
It's a little bit like sitting with a blind person if you're going on a trip or something and being able to describe the surroundings. You're using those kind of descriptive powers, and you've got to be able to sort of get a sense of, okay, what is the most important information in this image? What is the most concise way that I can give it, while making sure that all the salient points are mentioned, you know?
Okay. One of the ways which we've seen which Longdesc has been implemented usually requires the user to actually press enter, press the space bar to activate a link, which is going to bring them to another page which will describe the contents of the image. Now, would you say that that's ideal functionality or an ideal method of doing it, or are there other ways that you'd like to see this information presented to you?
I personally can't think of a better way, and my view on the whole press enter for long description is it is probably nice because it's hidden away. It's not going to be sort of staring sighted people in the face. I always say about the web, and it may be, I don't know if it's the most correct thing to say, Josh, but the bottom line is we live in a sighted world. The web is a sighted, is primarily a sighted area, a sighted medium. And, in some ways, people who use, say, assistive technology have to adapt. And I don't mean adapt in terms of sites shouldn't be usable or accessible, but, things like the Longdesc and things, other such things, can't be sort of cluttering up a web page so that it's going to be unattractive to a sighted user.
Absolutely.
So this is like something that runs in the background, that's accessible to anybody who needs it. And if you don't need it, then you don't even ever have to know it's there.
Okay, it is its implementation is slightly flawed, though, I would suggest, because of the fact that you as a user have to click on activate a link, right? You've actually moved to another page now, right? Were you aware of that?
I was aware of that. Now maybe a pop-up box could be put up and you just press the OK button to go back to the page. But I'm wondering, Josh...
Even that is flawed, I would suggest, because of... I could foresee better implementations for this in the future, right? Where, for example, the user could actually press for the long description, then that could somehow be loaded into the buffer of the screen reader behind the scenes without having to move the focus to another page. So if it could somehow be retrieved dynamically in the background and then presented to the user, and then the user can control via the screen reader keys when that information is presented. I think that would be an ideal implementation.
In an ideal world, yes. I think the problem with that is there are, as you know yourself, a number of screen readers, and there's going to be more, because now we're all going into this, well, some people are getting into this free screen reader thing, and there's good and bad parts to it. The problems with, I know certainly one of the free screen readers doesn't use the buffer, doesn't even use a proper web browser.
Many of them are going towards DOM. Interrogating the DOM directly and interacting with the DOM directly, which is actually fine, because the DOM can be loaded, information can be loaded into the DOM in the background, which the user can then get when they need to.
What about, Josh? What about a person, for example, browsing this website on a mobile device, and they're sitting on the train and they're on their way home from work or whatever, and they need to get a bit of information, and they have their device set not to download images because it takes too much time. Wouldn't it be nice for them to be able to access the image description as well if they need it?
That's another implementation for it. Now, having said all of that, the situation is at the moment is that when Longdesc is being used correctly and the content's being marked up correctly, and even that markup there, no diss to Christoph or anything like that, but it's slightly unusual the way the content's been marked up. We had some problems actually activating the Longdesc link, didn't we?
We had to do take two, let's be honest. This is the second time on the air.
So, that aside, in principle, I think
it's very good.
The Longdesc itself is very, very useful, because when it's done correctly and users can expect it, and in a setting where it's needed, it would be done correctly and the user would expect it. And then it's very, very useful. So that's what we're trying to illustrate, I guess. In this
and just, I suppose, the one other thing I'd say about this in relation to the Longdesc, I'm always promoting make assistive technology, or make this kind of stuff as mainstream as you can. How can the Longdesc be as useful to as many people as possible, outside of the disability arena? So where can it be useful to, say, you, for example? Well, you're going down, you have your mobile phone, you need to look up something quickly, and you want to know what is the pyramid. I quickly need a description of it before I go into a meeting. I don't have time to download the image. Where else can that kind of stuff be useful to the greatest number of people, so that we can then begin to mainstream it, so that it's not something that's kind of seen as, oh God, I have to do this because there's blind people, they need this stupid thing, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And people do, unfortunately, and one part of me can understand that, can understand why people think that.
It's very egalitarian of you, Stuart.
Well,
Okay, let's move on. There's another example on that page, but I think it's fairly illustrative of the Longdesc. So we're going to move on to another few examples. So
Another tab.
Could we tab on? Move on to the next tab.